painted by Bharadraja. And so without further ado,
thank you so much, Kriya Shakti Mataji, for arranging this presentation. I feel honored to be invited to speak about the history of transcendental art in the world. And I will try to do justice to the topic as best as I can. First of all, I would like to offer my humble obeisances to my Guru Deva, Abhay Charana Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, who has so mercifully intervened by opening my eyes while I was standing deep in the darkness of ignorance, unable to perceive anything of reality in this world. And regardless, for my humble position, he had mercifully done so, opened my eyes. And now let me tell you a little bit about how that came about. I first physically met Srila Prabhupada in 1969 in Boston. Although I had become involved with the temple in Montreal in winter of '68, and I had finally made my decision to come in and share the life with the other devotees who were there. And one of the first devotees I met in Montreal at the time was Jadharani. And I did not know it at the time, but Jadharani was the key figure in expanding the idea of transcendental art, chosen by Srila Prabhupada to do so, to begin illustrating Krishna's pastimes for the purpose of illuminating the translation of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which he named Krishna book. And so it was that I also met someone else who was very, very much key in bringing me to accept initiation from Srila Prabhupada, and accepting the charge, or not charge, but accepting a humble place in the company of Jadharani to pursue the work of painting and illuminating Krishna book. And that was Hamsadutta Das, which is how he calls himself these days. And he was, unbeknownst to me, also an artist in his life, a serious artist actually, before he met Srila Prabhupada. But interestingly enough, Hamsadutta himself only painted one painting, and he told me about it. It was a very large painting that he attempted of Lord Vishnu, but for some unknown reason, Srila Prabhupada was not fond of that painting. which was a and that painting has disappeared since then, and no one even knows what happened to it. So Hamsadutta decided to take it down, and we don't know what happened to it. But Hamsadutta was actually very serious about art and Krishna conscious art, and since when he found out that I had an artistic background, he was very he pursued me as a possible conscript to the art department, which at that time really pretty much consisted of Jadharani, who was in Boston painting. This is in '69. And a few other women devotees. My future wife-to-be, Rukmini Devi, was assisting Jadharani, and she had done some painting also. Sharadiya Devi, who was also there, beginning to paint. Janava was also there, beginning to paint. I think Ekayani also. So there were a number of other trainees, I guess you would say, at that time, who were working under Jadharani Devi. I arrived in Boston in May '69, not really knowing where my destiny was going to take me. And Hamsadutta very, very generously and kindly took me in to meet Srila Prabhupada in his quarters, and introduced me as an artist. He said, "This boy is an artist." And Prabhupada said, "Yes. We need artists. We need help with our paintings. Would you like to paint for a Krishna book?" And of course, I was completely taken by surprise. I had no idea that any of this was that things are going to go that way. But Prabhupada's smile was irresistible. So in spite of my feelings of inadequacy and humility, I said, yes, I would. And so then Srila Prabhupada proceeded to give me a test. There was a small little photograph on his desk of, and you will see it. It's among these slides and the painting that it's actually hanging in Prabhupada's quarters at the moment. And he said, copy this. So, drawing, I felt good about. So I accepted the chart and the assignment, and I decided and stayed up quite late into the night doing the rendering of it. And then next morning, actually it wasn't the next morning, I go back. This assignment came a little bit later, not on that very first introduction. However, many things had taken place between my meeting Srila Prabhupada and accepting his offer to initiate, to give me initiation, and including a marriage that took place between myself and one of the young painters who were assisting Chaturani at the time, and that was Rukmini. And there was a marriage, which was a group marriage. There were other couples married in the same ceremony. Prabhupada performed the ceremony, and many wonderful things happened during that time. But finally came the time for my test. So Prabhupada gave me that photograph, and I did the drawing as best as I could. And the next morning, I, along with other artists who were already there, I went up to Prabhupada's room and made the presentation. And everyone had brought whatever they were working on. There were various paintings in various stages of completion. And Rukmini, my new bride, was also working on a painting. But it was a copy in a style of Kangra. So kind of a traditional, pretty much a traditional rendering. It was a beautiful scene. Radha and Krishna were meeting in the moonlight. And very simple, very dark tones, and the only bright thing in the whole painting were the two figures of Radha and Krishna emerging from the two sides of the like banana grove, and about to meet, and there was a bright full moon. And I thought the painting was wonderful, beautiful. I was really surprised. And there were other paintings, and I don't remember all the paintings that were presented at that time. And Prabhupada looked at each one of them and acknowledged. Sometimes he made a comment, sometimes he was silent. And then he looked at me, and I didn't know how to do this, so I rolled my drawing up into like a scroll, and I was standing there and holding it, waiting to give it to Srila Prabhupada. And then he looked at me, and he kind of, with his eyes, kind of pointed at the rolled up drawing, and I handed it to him. So he put it in front of him and put one finger of his left hand on the bottom of the scroll, and with his other finger he started to unfurl the drawing. And as he unfurled it, and he saw it, first he looked at, it was Mahaprabhu in Kirtan, so he unfurled and he saw the feet, and he began to smile. Then he unfurled it a little further, and he saw the body and the other devotees around Mahaprabhu, and he smiled more. Then when he unfurled it all the way, and he saw Mahaprabhu's face, his eyes got very big. His smile got, the typical full smile that Prabhupada was always gracing us with, ear to ear. And he was looking at it and just, shaking his head in appreciation. And he looked at me and he said, "I think the husband is better." Which I'm sure was a great mortifying statement received by Rukmini. So it began, my service. I was not able to stay in Boston at the time. I had to go back. I was living in Montreal at the time and went back there for some time, but with some assignments from Srila Prabhupada. And he requested me to do a painting of Krishna showing the universe to Mother Yashoda in his mouth. You know, that famous pastime, when Krishna pretended to have eaten some dirt, and the story came back to Mother Yashoda, and she was very disturbed, and all the boys told on Krishna, and she said, "Is that true?" And Krishna said, "No." Mm-mm. And then she said, "All right, if you are telling truth, then open your mouth, let me see." So Krishna finally opens his mouth, and Mother Yashoda looks in, and what does she see? Not only a little dirt, but the entire earth globe, an entire heavens, and the entire Bhumandala, and the entire cosmic manifestation. And she also sees herself looking into Krishna's mouth. And seeing that, she nearly lost her mind. And seeing her so disturbed and losing her equilibrium, as he did with Arjuna, Krishna then withdrew that vision. And when she recovered her senses and saw that Krishna was there in front of her, she said, "Okay, close your mouth and never do that again." So this was my task, how to represent this pastime. Inconceivable. It was inconceivable. I pored over it for months, literally, unable to find a way to even begin. So this was my initiation into the process of transcendental art. Clearly, I had no idea. So I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada and asked him to please help me. How shall I do this? How shall I begin? I said, I'm lost. Prabhupada sent back a little drawing, a little stick drawing. I mean, just the idea of Prabhupada doing a stick drawing of the Krishna's pastime was like a revelation, because two things I realized. I realized that you could make a stick drawing of Krishna, but perhaps you had to be a Jagat Guru to do that, and that Prabhupada could communicate a great deal in very, very simple, with a few strokes, with very few words, that his message was powerful and transcendental and had nothing to do with our mundane conceptions of how to proceed, with our service. Somehow or rather, this very, very simple drawing had entered my consciousness, had entered my heart, and from there it manifests into what eventually became the drawing, which is the painting, which is not here, not among these paintings. It's up in the gallery. I have not even seen it in ever. Oh, well, maybe we should leave it where it is for now. So, ruminating on this event of Prabhupada communicating it wasn't suggestion for composition, it wasn't suggestion for rendering. It was simply an encouragement to proceed. Well, that is, I I must say, it is an improvement on the original. This is not my painting. The painting that I did, I have no idea where it is, but it's in Krishna book. The stick figures are in there somewhere, but what it was just a conceptual drawing. Because since I could not accommodate the whole concept, Prabhupada showed me the simple way, and that was, as you see it there, there's two stick figures. There was a large stick figure of Mother Yashoda on one side, exactly as she is positioned here. On the other side, a little stick figure of Krishna, again. Above them was a balloon coming from Krishna's head, more or less in the vicinity of his mouth. That was it. And inside the balloon, there were some stars and planets drawn in. So the great realization, and of course, the composition was basically copied from that, but the realization came that that we should not hesitate to go forward with the service. Once the service has been awarded, once Prabhupada has given us the blessing that this is your service, now do it. No more hesitation, no more self-doubt, no more a sense of unworthiness, or whatever might come, with having been given transcendental service, which at the time was like the prime service that could be done. I mean, apart from everything else that was going on, from the Harinam parties that were going on daily, which was really the power of the movement. The book, Krishna book, which was coming to be unfolded to the world, to be given without any hesitation, without any reservation, to the world, disclosing the greatest of all secrets and the greatest of all realizations and knowledge, that Krishna is real, sentient, all-powerful, omniscient, all-beautiful, and anyone can receive Krishna. Anyone can see him. Anyone can be blessed with darshan. And anyone can know and understand Krishna's pastimes, regardless of qualifications. So this was the beginning. And from that point, the work began to flow in an unimaginable pace. But still, Prabhupada was interested in a quicker pace, because we were still, even though I eventually came to Boston on Jadharani's invitation. This is when the press was established in Boston, and I came there and joined her and a few others. Among them was a beautiful elderly disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Devahuti, who was very, very much whose work was appreciated. She was a painter, and there is one of her famous paintings. So all of these paintings that were worked on individually by various artists were coming out with, and each one was sharing their vision, their sense of how the Lord and his associates and the Chintamani Dham and all of its inhabitants looked, what they did. All of us were very much aware of the fact that we were somehow or other instruments of the revelation. Srila Prabhupada was revealing. In a mysterious way, he was revealing these things. Yes, there were previously existing images. A lot of Indian artists, such as some of them anonymous, like the Kangra masters and Kota and Basholi masters, who have left us such a rich history of illustrating Krishna Lila. And others, more contemporary artists, B.G. Sharma and Banerjee and Bengal and others, masters. So, but Srila Prabhupada was not interested in their work. He was interested in the work as it was coming through his disciples. Because through his disciples, his willing, surrendered, and eager to serve devotees, he was able to transmit his vision, which was unique, which stressed the intimacy and the beauty and the innocence of Krishna, and especially his youthful pastimes, and the unique perspective which eventually came to be called Transcendental Art. So these are, in my experience, or in my sort of understanding, not what is called illustrations. They're not illustrations. They're more properly illuminations. And what that means to me is that Prabhupada, with his words, his transcendental narrative, his transcendental storytelling, and his masterful, his poetic style, was through us, through the artists who were engaged by him, was manifesting his very, very particular vision of Krishna Lila. And even so, in the beginning, it seemed that everyone was working in their own style. And still it was all inspired by Prabhupada. and directed by Srila Prabhupada, mysteriously. Not in so many words, but simply by his constant encouragement. And each one of these paintings, which we probably should now begin to view, was supremely appreciated by Srila Prabhupada. Inconceivably, with all of their, what to us, to our individual perception, appeared to be sort of awkward and neophyte attempts to try to portray Krishna Lila. Some of them were more successful, we thought, than others. But whatever we thought, it was obviously not how Prabhupada looked at it, how Prabhupada saw these paintings. Well, Srila Prabhupada saw Krishna. And what he said was in his final sort of a pronouncement on the worth and the value of these paintings. He said, "These are the windows to the spiritual world. Don't think that they are ordinary paintings. They are actual windows to the spiritual world." So through these paintings, we are actually. These paintings do not reflect, just as Prabhupada said in his first recording of the Mahamantra. He said, "This is a transcendental sound vibration, which has nothing to do with the language of the mundane poetry or song. That this sound is coming directly from the spiritual world." So through these paintings, okay, that'll do. So through these paintings, we can actually wander into the spiritual reality and experience the rasa which is there, regardless of our position in spirit. In terms of our spiritual advancement, we are offered the opportunity to actually experience the rasa in our conditioned, even our so-called conditioned state. And this was by Prabhupada's blessing, this was being offered to everyone, not just his disciples and those who were diligently following the bhakti yoga process, but to ordinary people on the street. Because when we finally realized that it was that it was an excuse to give Krishna directly to people, that we eventually took these books to the streets and showed them to the passers-by. And when they saw these pictures, they were irresistible. They wanted to have them. They wanted to have the books. Regardless, they knew nothing. There was no incentive other than I want to know more. I want to go into that reality. The attraction, Krishna's attraction, was so great, so irresistible, that it made ordinary people desire to possess these books. So Prabhupada wanted to increase the amount of the illuminations, the paintings in these books. So then he suggested that we create a team, that rather than everyone sort of working in their own way, that we should work together. And each person could in turn take the painting and do on that painting what they do best, how they do best, and that way the painting will progress at a faster rate. And that is what we did. And this was a transcendental process, because by doing that, our minds became one, and our hearing of the pastimes and the way we were processing them was all kind of, it was united. It was woven together, and we were in it. We were just sort of constantly immersed. It was like a river that was flowing through that little room in Boston on the top floor, which was unheated in a winter time and overheated in a summertime, and where we sat back to back. In the beginning, just the three of us, myself, Jadurani, and Muralidhar. So now I will try to identify the paintings in this collection, which it really is unprecedented collection of paintings, because it is there isn't a collection like this anywhere in any of our temples. This is it, and Nudwarka was established with this purpose in mind by Srila Prabhupada. This is the cultural center, the center of the arts of devotion for the world. So, a painting by Srimati Jadurani of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. This painting, I think originally, I remember it in Montreal. I think I did see this painting when I was first newly in the ashram in Montreal. And Jadurani, she much can be said, but we don't have the time to say it tonight. Needless to say that she is the pioneer and the first one in the succession to receive Prabhupada's direct instructions and direct oversight in New York, when Prabhupada was living in a loft of one of his early followers. He was an artist and had a loft, and Prabhupada was actually staying there and living there, and Jadurani was working there. This painting, I believe it's Muralidhar's, although I'm not 100% sure. Muralidhar at the time was still working in San Francisco, so he began his work in San Francisco, which was his home, and you'll see some of the other paintings that were done by him, and so between Jadurani and Muralidhar and Devahuti, these paintings were beginning to be done. They were done at a very slow pace, but very much appreciated by Srila Prabhupada. And Muralidhar had shared a story with me about his first attempts, and he had come to Srila Prabhupada and asked him. He was sitting in his room, and there were pictures, other pictures that were from calendar art from India, and things that we have seen at the time, because there were so few paintings. That's what was mostly decorating Prabhupada's room. So Muralidhar was in great consternation about how to paint Krishna. So he said, which one of these paintings
which one of these looks more like Krishna? Which one should I base my work on? And he said, Prabhupada looked at him, he said, as though he was mad. He said, Prabhupada looked at him and he just shriveled into a small ball of contrition. And Prabhupada said, they are all Krishna. Which is a revelation because, indeed, Krishna is in all beings, and all beings are reflections. All faces of all souls and unlimited souls in the world are various reflections of Krishna's original beauty. So here is one of the first collaborative works between Muralidhar, Jadharani, and myself. The usual process was that since I was I was given the task of beginning the composition. So what I would do is I would try to create something very dynamic, and so I went about in my own way, sort of exploring possibilities. Unfortunately, we were limited to the format of the book page. I really didn't like the idea of a spread because I didn't want anything to be lost in the gutter of the book. Unfortunately, some of the original early paintings were still done in that style. So Devahuti's work was in there, and it's usually divided into in the center. But in this painting, we tried as much as possible to follow the various descriptions that Prabhupada was giving us in the Krishna book, and of course it's all there. In terms of the appearance of the personalities and especially the demons, how they were described, what are the various features, it was important to me as one who sort of began the composition that it would be, here's another early Muralidhar paintings, a depiction of the exodus from Gokula to Braj after so many difficulties. So many demons had attacked the village, attacked Krishna. They decided to move to a better location. So everyone is. So this is early Muralidhar. This is the painting. This is this painting, and I'm not positive. I think it's Jadharani. To my knowledge, to my best recollection of Jadharani's style, especially the early style, is her very exact reproduction of the originals. She was very careful to copy very, very exactly the style and the format of the original painting. So, and I'm not sure who the original painter of this is, but this was the painting that Prabhupada had given to me. It was a small photograph on his desk, and he gave it to me to copy. Another painting which maybe Krishakti, you can mention something about this, what you have found out about this. As far as I know, it's not a print, it is a painting, it is an original painting.
There's a signature in the lower right corner. V.H. Pandya, who was a famous artist in India. He has a school, and I consulted many art galleries and experts sending them this picture, and they asked about the size, and they said no, it wasn't an original from V.H. Pandya, but probably one of his students. The students would copy the master, and that's how they knew they were graduating in their art, is if they could make reproductions exactly like his.
This is a classic method of an atelier apprenticeship, and the students eventually may grow to be masters, but usually not in the master's lifetime. So, but in our case, that was Prabhupada wanted just the opposite. He wanted to glorify his students. He wanted to glorify his apprentices, and he was the master. Make no mistake that as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, the others who were of the artists that I was privileged to share that great time in history with, all felt the same way, that it was that we were not actually doing anything, creating anything, that we were simply instruments of Srila Prabhupada's wish and Srila Prabhupada's vision, and tried our best to be that. Here's Muralidhar was the only one who attempted, at that time at least, to use watercolor as a medium. Watercolor painting is a great challenge. It's beautiful and it's full of light and transparency, and it's quick to execute, but it is very unforgiving. And by that I mean is that if you make a mistake, it's very difficult to correct it. Whereas with oils, if you make a little mistake, you can go over it. You can blend things out. You can even paint over. But watercolor is not so. So Muralidhar, to his great credit, took on that challenge, and he was quite successful at it, as you can see from these. Another Jadharani painting. Jadharani in the beginning painted in these very earthy tones, and this was a copy of a photograph, obviously, but it was the original was a black and white photograph, so she tried to put as much color as she felt she could. But you see that the tone of Srila Prabhupada's body is more in a sort of a black and white feeling. Well, this was my second painting I had attempted. This was already done while I was in Boston. It was one of the first paintings I did in Boston, with working with others. This painting was entirely painted by myself, or I should say, by Prabhupada, with using me as a hand. This is obviously the pastime where the two twin Yamalarjuna trees are are liberated, and the two sons of Kuvera are released. Had no idea how to do this. It always just, the two personalities revealed themselves. I was still a little bit sticking to the Kangra style of composition and treating the foliage and the background in that more stylized way. Especially the colors, because the colors were so vibrant and pure. So this was a very encouraging step for me to have been able to complete this painting, and it happened in a fairly short time. But soon after this, we began to work together. Even while working together, we still carried on with our own paintings, also individual paintings. And I must say that Devahuti, the elder, was never became part of the process. She felt comfortable just doing the works that she was doing, and Prabhupada very much encouraged her, so she remained an individualist in her style and her work. And so another Devahuti piece. This was a large painting. It's also upstairs in Prabhupada's quarters. So this is really a unique collection, and especially because of its. This was a collaborative painting, and you can see how there are parts that seem to belong to other individuals. The elephant stands is, was my composition. The faces, Krishna's face and other figures in the background, Balaram and others, was Jadharani's contribution. The foliage and floral rendering and elements, water and such, and the details, garlands and flowers and decorations. I wish you could see the painting, more closely than you would see, but you can if you visit the collection in Prabhupada's quarters, and you'll be able to see the close-up details. So those details, the detail work is usually done by Muralidhar, who was very meticulous and very refined in his approach to rendering things like jewelry and pearls and cloth, and he was a classicist, so he was attending to those details. Not sure about this one, but I'm suspecting this is Govindadasi. Yes, that's what I was going to say. Govindadasi was one of the first, and in fact, the very first published work, which was on the cover of the first Macmillan edition of the Bhagavad Gita, with a lavender cover, that's Govindadasi's. So we could say that Govindadasi was the pioneer, and she did a lot of children's books, and that was her specialty. doing these simple line drawings. So a lot of those are there. All this work that was done, and eventually, of course, all the artists came. Eventually, the artists came to Los Angeles. Initially, they were in Boston, then New York. New York was an expanded situation, and that's where the art department finally came into its what became the BBT art department. It was well developed. There was a program for training new aspirants. There was and it was housed in the same building as the press and the printing and the layout and everything. So everything was under the same roof. So the communication and the use of the artwork was all very smoothly carried out, including the Back to Godhead work that was also being done. So in the midst of all this, I found myself deeply, deeply, gratefully ensconced. Here, another work of Devahuti. You can see very, very, very unique style, very lyrical style, but kind of classical book illustration style. The work that was going on in New York at Tiffany Place, ISKCON Press, was tremendous, and the process that was happening had finally reached a kind of crescendo, and all this was going on. And when Prabhupada finally arrived in 1973 to visit the newly established ISKCON Press, what shall we do? Stop?
Sometimes there's no stopping the rescue time. Why don't you just keep speaking for 5 more minutes?
Okay.
We'll just go for 5 more minutes, and
So, with all kindness and mercy from their lordship, I would like to make my final statement about what finally became an expansion of our first Transcendental Art effort, and that is the theistic exhibitions. And in that meeting, after reviewing all the work that was done and seeing all the progress of the art department, Srila Prabhupada suddenly turned to me in the Assembly of Artists and said, "Now I want someone to go to Mayapur and learn doll making. Who will go?" And it was deadly silence in the room. No one could even begin to understand what Prabhupada was referring to and why he was asking and what was this all about. And so then Prabhupada described the process a little bit. He said they're very, very expert. He said in one day they can create a full sculpture. So expert. Someone should go. Now I want someone to go there and study from them. Again, silence. So then finally, suddenly, Prabhupada turned. I was kind of sitting on the side. Prabhupada turned to me and looked me straight in the eyes. And he said, "Bharadraja, you will go." So I did. And others, Adideva and Srimati were all already there. Of course, I went with Rukmini, and we learned in a traditional way and discovered what was behind Prabhupada's desires, how his Guru Maharaj had inspired the whole idea of transcendental art and what it was its purpose, how transcendental art, especially the theistic exhibition, the idea of theistic exhibitions, can change ordinary people, can change the consciousness forever of ordinary people on the street who even for a moment are able to see these pastimes manifest either in painting or especially in as dioramas in 3D form. And not just the pastimes, but subtle ideas, philosophical ideas also. And Prabhupada again and again instructed and emphasized that this is supremely important work because it will reach people everywhere, regardless of linguistic separations between peoples. Everyone, anywhere, without reading the books, he said, will understand Krishna, will understand the philosophy. And so, after the studies there, on Prabhupada's desire, we came here to New Dwarka and began the Fate Project. And the first manifestation and the first offering to Srila Prabhupada is what you now see and know as the Bhagavad Gita Museum, which is, in my humble estimation, the greatest treasure on earth. That this art, this little museum, humble as it is, contains beauties and transcendental treasure unequal to anything in any museum, any art museum, any historical museum, any natural history museum, anywhere on this planet. And so now we are working hard to try to restore and bring back the significance and the importance of this community, this art center, this museum. We pray and ask for your blessings and your support and your best wishes for our success and for Prabhupada's great pleasure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
Is there any kind of significance? It seems like the perspective is not as much accent in a lot of those paintings regarding, let's say, the European art. Is there any...
Stick figures. All I can say is stick figures. The point is that the emphasis is on the ras, and that was my very, very first realization when I saw Jadharani's first paintings in Boston, the little ones that she had, and some of them were just copies of the original Bengali Banerjee or someone else. But at some point, I remember looking at one of the paintings. It was a painting of Mother Yashoda coming in through the doorway, and Krishna and Balaram are hiding behind the pillar. Balaram is it Balaram or Krishna? Krishna is stealing. Balaram is standing and keeping watch, and the monkeys are already eating whatever is being thrown to them. And I remember looking at this expression on the monkey's face that was eating the butter, and all of a sudden I had a rush of ecstatic feelings, and it just from seeing the expression on the monkey's face, I was able to feel the whole atmosphere of that scene, and the thoughts, and it was like I was literally transported inside that little painting, which was actually kind of crude. The strokes were kind of rough, and but it was full with ras. It had the real transcendental content. And that is when I realized that when Prabhupada said that Jadharani's paintings are windows into the spiritual world, he referred specifically to her paintings. That it was true, and that it was that I was so fortunate to have her, as basically my teacher. And it has remained to this day. I'm really hoping, working and reaching out to all of the original painters and sculptors, all of those who worked here in this community so many years ago, while Prabhupada was still here, to come together again to restore our Transcendental Art community. So that is that is my hope. Yes. Well, we did have Krishna book. Prabhupada was, as he was dictating the content of the Krishna book with these purports, the tapes would first come to the art department. And so, or the copies were made. And we used to, as we were painting, we heard Prabhupada narrating the stories, speaking it. So the transcendental vibration was flowing directly through the hand. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's how it all came about. That's how it was possible. Through the sound. Yes, directly. So he was actually manifesting it, from far away, but, through the sound. And that's why I think, that's why you feel it. It's there. That the personalities are there. You're actually in touch. You're in their presence. So you're experiencing, bhav. Beautiful. It's so true. And that is the great mystery of transcendental art.
My service has been distributing books for the last 37 years. And in my experience, I've been seeing that, at least in my case, like 80% or 90% of the books distributed are because of the beautiful art, the beautiful paintings. In fact, I remember, well, there's many times, many comments, good comments, but I remember vividly a couple times that I present the book and I'm beginning to explain. They say, no, hold it right there. I say, what? He says, it's self-explanatory. You don't need to explain it. Everything is explained right here. And I thought, wow, that's right. That is true. And many people, sometimes, they might not be philosophically inclined, or even we book distributors, some of us were not that brilliant in explaining the philosophy properly. But just because of the paintings, the people are totally like eager to get them. And some of them, they say, look at my skin. When I see these paintings, it's like, look, shivering. And there's something that these paintings have that I don't know, I can't explain. They say that they're revealing the feeling that they get from this art. So
They are.
every time I, exactly. So I'm thinking about all the painters who did this work and the wonderful vision of Srila Prabhupada and you being the instruments. And then we as agents of distributor, and I say, wow, what a beautiful combination. What a wonderful. And then I remember, and then we're indebted to these devotees who put all the sacrifice in assisting Srila Prabhupada. Because without a painting, sometimes I think a book without a painting, what would that be? It's so hard. It's so hard to distribute a book. You have to be super clever, or the person has to be really super inclined, inquisitive, to actually receive the philosophy. So thank you very much. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
So indebted.
I believe that we were all painting those paintings, all of us. We're just, some of us happen to be the actual, point of contact with the canvas, but I believe that all the devotees, especially those who were, who were distributing the books, who were actually taking the paintings to the people, we're part of the process, part of the process of manifestation. I like to say that transcendental art is beauty in search of the beholder. It is said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but transcendental art is not only in the eye of the beholder, but it also lives in its own. It is the truth. So it is the truth that is walking through the world, that is dancing through the world in search. Who will see me? Who will see me? I am here. Come and see me. And when that happens, it's transcendental magic. Because the
Question over here.
yes.
If we're interested in the history of the transcendental art, especially some of us that have grown up looking at the paintings, other than the large Krishna art book, and are there any other recorded histories of what Srila Prabhupada advised you all to, how to draw certain things or how to draw Krishna, or just some of the things that you were even talking about tonight? Is there any other book you can suggest, or has anyone written anything about the community that you've talked about? Because in future generations, as you said, we can continue painting and creating things so that other people can see it. So I was just curious.
Well, there are segments in various books that have been written, memoirs that have been published.
But not a
Jadharani
concise history?
now has prepared. Her book is ready for she's written a huge memoir book, and it's all there. To answer your question, so but it's not yet published. It may be published this year sometime. I actually have the privilege. She asked me to do the editing on it, so I'm in the process of doing it. But beyond that, what I would like to say is that what I had mentioned just before, I am attempting, with the help of some of the artists who are already on board with the idea, to form a kind of a collective. So it's basically a school of transcendental art. It's called Art Center for Transcendence, and it's going to be established here in Los Angeles. And it is aspiring to be a school and a production studio that will teach all aspects of transcendental art, not just painting and sculpture, but all the 64 arts that we have heard about. There's music, there's architecture, there's everything you can imagine. And so that is the hope, and that is the vision for the future of transcendental art.
I have a question also. The dioramas in the Fate Museum, they're sublime. The figures are just amazing, and the faces are so transcendental. I think about Karuna's comment that we can get a vision to the spiritual world. So can you explain a little bit about the process of making these dioramas, and did you have to adjust anything for production in the West, or were they done according to the manufacturing that you learned in India?
I'm glad you asked. Because the whole process of painting that had evolved up to the point where Srila Prabhupada had suggested a further development by sending us to Mayapur to study from the local masters. In Bengali, they are called Putul Mistari. The Putul Mistari is he's a craftsman, and what they do is they create these incredible, beautiful dioramas in a traditional style, which has evolved. It's kind of a folk art in a sense, although it is based in ancient lines and ancient history. And that's why Prabhupada was so keen on us learning, getting it directly from those masters. They are engaged in doing these works only 1 or 2 months a year. The rest of the time, they do their other work, because they only do they only create these dioramas during for the purposes of the seasonal puja ceremony, which is a more kind of a village celebration. So there's the Ganesha puja, there's a Shivaratri, there's Saraswati and Lakshmi, and all of them have their seasonal celebrations. So during those times, these dioramas are created from the materials that are gathered from the bank of the Ganges. Everything that's used in the process comes from the holy ground, from the bank of the bank of the Ganges, or from the things, or from the different types of pigments and clays and cow dung and rice straw and jute and all the different things that grow on the water of the Ganges. When the process is finished, and it is a beautiful process and very elaborate, and there's a lot of mysterious little aspects to it that we had managed to learn in spite of all the problems in receiving that knowledge, which those masters are very guarded about. These dioramas are then, at the end of the puja, they are returned to the river. The whole elaborate, beautiful construction and manifestation returns to where it came from. No attachment, no other use for this art except transcendental worship. So the process, that is their process. What we did, of course, we took the form, and under Prabhupada's direction and Srila Prabhupada's wish, used that process, expanded that process to make it into what it is now, and that is a lasting art that is meant to teach and to impart, the experience of the transcendental lila. And if you see, and if you walk through the museum, especially some of the exhibits where you can actually, where there's no glass, so you can actually be directly in the presence of those figures. If you take the time to stand and to still your mind and your senses, and to just stand there in front of those manifestations, you will experience something truly wondrous, truly transcendental. The presence is there in spite of all the external, coverings, dust and broken aspects. And this is the process. So what we did was a lot of the especially the Rasa Lila and the large form of Mahavishnu in universal form, and even universal form itself. Many of the figures are done in a traditional style. There are clay figures. There's a straw core, and the straw is folded, bundled, and twisted in a certain manner, and tied in a certain manner to take shapes of the forms. Then it's smeared over with various layers of clay, different clays that are mixed with other materials to make them firm, and finished with a certain silt clay. All of these materials, most of these materials were not available here. So we had to improvise. A lot of it was improvised. But as far as possible, we kept to the original process. So the forms you see, the way that the faces are fashioned, is for the most part based on what was learned, on the forms that as they had been learned, and the process, and much was learned through the process. And I have to say that after studying the sculpture, at least the putul, or the Bengali sculpture, my painting changed completely. When I went back to paint, the painting changed. I was able to the so-called three-dimensionality of a form, or the illusion of a three-dimensionality of the form, became much more concrete in a sense, because I had experience of that sort of, that transcendental form. And I believe it's transcendental. I think that Prabhupada would not have had us study so closely with those masters. It was anything other than pure transcendental art. So paid attention, did our work, followed the manner and the style, but then, it evolved through our, each artist had taken it and expressed it in their own way, as best as they could. And I think this museum here, I think, is unrepeatable. I think because it was so fresh from that experience, because the forms are still very, they still sort of have the spirit of that time and that place and everything that had been learned. Yes.
You were a painter. Did you have any training as a sculptor?
No.
As a sculptor?
No, that was my training. That was the only training.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing. That you were able to make that.
Yeah, it was, again, Prabhupada. It was not nothing I really intended to do, but it's what he wanted.
Oh, just out of curiosity, was it ever possible to meet Prabhupada's challenge of making one figure in a day?
Not yet.
The challenge is still on.
Just,
Hare
thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada's quarters will be open until 9 o'clock. If anyone would like to go have darshan.